Hey guys, I'm just now getting into the system. It's been down all day long, and we've got the alibi response from Bryan Kohberger. So I'm just going to wait for some people to get into the chat. And then once we get into the chat, we'll go over some of the stuff. So we'll wait for a few more people to get in because I just got notified. I was trying to consider whether or not to go through an intro to give people time to get in here, or whether just to go ahead and go live. And I just chose to go live because hey guys, because we did get a response from the alibi. So I'm gonna wait for people to come in so we don't have to go over it too many times. We're going to have to repeat it a few times as we start getting people coming in. But there is a response. There is a response, and we're going to go over it together and go over what all of that means. Hey guys, I'm waiting for everybody just to kind of come in, and we'll start working on this. Just a second. Let me increase this just a tad. There we go. And here we have it. Notice of and I told you, remember, guys, I gotta say, whenever it comes, this stuff, I kind of just know, behaviors of attorneys because, Jim and Jennifer Koffendorfer thought that they wouldn't respond at all. And I'm thinking they're not going to not respond after requesting an extension. I know there is some type of strategy in not responding at all. I do understand that. But you have to think it through. Would it be beneficial or not beneficial? And it probably, especially with the alibi, would. But she's going to probably give a lot of legal jargon. But we're going to go over it. I knew that they were going to be responsive. I knew that they were going to respond with something. I honestly, in my back of my mind, I thought she was going to ask for additional time. I truly thought she was going to ask for additional time. So here's what it says. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on the big screen for you guys so you guys can see it really, really big. And I'll try to move it as I read it because I'm reading it from my paper, not from the screen. I guess I could read it from the screen. It'll probably be easier because then we'll be on the same page. There we go. Okay. Come now, Bryan Kohberger, Bryan through his attorney of record, Ann C. Taylor, public defender, and hereby files notice in response to the demand for alibi and in compliance with Idaho Code Section 19-519 and Idaho Criminal Rule 12.1. Mr. Kohberger notes, oh, and by the way, guys, thank you for all being here. But I'm not going to, while I'm reading this, I will not be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions for me, could you save them until the end? I know sometimes you think of them, just get something and write it down on and save it to when I'm done with this. And then we'll start going through it and answering questions. If I don't know, we'll try to look up as much as we can. So you guys have as much. Basically, he will disclose his location with discovery and cross-examination of the state witnesses, and we'll bring experts. Well, thank you, Angel. Let's just we read through it. We read through it here. So Mr. Kohberger notes Idaho Section 19.5.4 reserves his constitutional right to silence as well to testify on his own behalf. Mr. Kohberger stands firm on his constitutional right as well as statutory recognition of that right. Noteworthy is that the alibi indicates a line of proof by which the defendant attempts to show that he could not have committed the crime of which he is accused of because he was elsewhere at the time. Alibi defense, this is a case, so we can actually look up the case and read it if we need to. A defendant denial of charges against him does not constitute an alibi, but as soon as he offers evidence that he was at some place other than where the crime of which he is charged was committed, he is raising the alibi defense. Mr. Kohberger's defense team continues to investigate and prepare his case. Evidence corroborating Mr. Kohberger's being at a location other than the King Road address will be disclosed pursuant to discovery and evidentiary rule, as well as statutory requirement. It is anticipated that this evidence may be offered by way of cross-examination of witnesses produced by the state, as well as calling expert witnesses. So there you guys have it. And, you know, we knew they were not going to actually respond to the alibi. You know, I was hopeful that we would get a glimmer, just a slight glimmer of something, right? Just something. And we didn't. Nothing. But listen to this. I am studying this document right here. And this is the one I couldn't bring up to you guys at an earlier time. And this one is a little cray-cray in all fairness. Motion to reconsider. It's this one right here. So we've been having a lot of problems with the system. I don't know if it's just the overwhelming amount of people on the system, because this morning when I was up at 4 a.m., the system was up and working fine. I could get it. I could see the docket. And then by the time we started our show this morning at 6:30, the system was completely down again. And I know that everybody must have been waiting for that alibi to be filed. So I was wondering if maybe there are so many people flooding that system that it's actually shutting it down. Potentially, you know, potentially that's what it could potentially be. There's rumors Adam has been arrested, and it was his car at the gas station. You heard anything like this? No, I surely have not. Oh, you overslept, Ruby? That's fine. No, I'm sure you're talking about Adam, the roommate of Jack D. Is that the Adam you're speaking about, Angel? There's like a little lag here, so I'm trying to wait. Who's Adam? Alexandra. It might be. I think it might be the Adam that was the roommate to Jack Decor, that was at the bar, or was like the security at the bar. I'm thinking that's who. Apparently so. Yes, I haven't heard that, and I definitely haven't heard of him being arrested in connection with this case at all. I mean, if he's I don't know what he'd be arrested for, but I haven't heard it. Now, what am I looking for it? No, he's been out of mind, out of sight, out of mind for so long that it's not like I'm looking into it. But let me just, I mean, it wouldn't take me anything just to take a look, see here. I can't even remember what his last name was. I know I had a file on everybody. Hold on a second. Where was that? I think that was on my other account. Hold on a second. I think I have all their information. Give me just a second. Is this it? Shit, that's not it. Excuse my language, guys. I didn't mean to. See what you guys are writing here. Yeah, I get it. I know it's hard to know what to believe. I'll look it up. Apparently it's on Facebook group. I've seen it. Yeah, but see, you know what I don't like is like even this whole entire case, you know, the Idaho 4, you know, when it was popping before we even knew about Bryan Kohberger, you know, there was a lot of rumors and speculation going on in like 4chan and Reddit, and 4chan is all anonymous. I couldn't make that. That was I had to finally stop looking because it was just full of garbage. And a lot of people were now taking that garbage that they were reading on 4chan and bringing it over to Reddit. And so it took a lot to work through, but a lot of the stuff that we were hearing back then weren't legit and weren't corroborated at all. They just weren't. And a lot of that stuff when there's times where there's not a whole lot of news going on, especially in a particular subject matter, if that creator or whoever is, if that's their only case, and they start generating stuff, or they start going back and revisiting all the stuff before. Now, I don't know if that's the case. I really don't know if that's the case, but I find that, like even now, there was a lot of stuff. People are starting to go back through a lot of Summer Wells stuff, and they're bringing up, people, places, or things that had already previously been, a non-issue. And then, in a few months, it'll be like, oh, it's a non-issue again, because it's just like recycling it. So I don't know if that is potentially what's going on here, but let me find Adam's name. I know I've got it. Suspect. There we go. Okay, the hoodie guy. Adam. Okay, I don't want to dox him, but I've got his name. I'm telling you, we have such crazy notes. No, I'm not seeing anything for him. I'm surely not. Well, if nothing more, at least we put one of the things to bed. Let me just go over and check another source real quick. Apparently, he was one of the dunk contest champions in 2019. But no, it doesn't look like. No. So Angel, if nothing else, no, he hasn't been arrested. If he had, it would be somewhere. It'd be somewhere on something other than a Facebook group, and I'm not seeing anything on my end. I'm just not. I've looked him up by his name. Unless they haven't put it in there, but I looked up his name now. He's good. Let me get through some of this. Man, that 4chan was crazy. Yeah, that's why I couldn't do it, because like I said, when I started hearing, it was just really crazy, because it almost was a snowballing effect when all of this. Oh no, you're welcome, Angel. You're welcome anytime. It was just crazy at the time, because this was a snowballing effect. Think about it. They just the social media just kept rolling with it. It wasn't like they had any thought process of pointing the finger. It's like if they were around him, they were accused of doing something to him. Just because you know somebody doesn't mean you're going to go in their house in the middle of the night and do this. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go out there. Everybody was coming up with such wild conspiracy theories, but they were just rolling theories. It was like, oh, it's Jack S. Oh shoot, Jack S is cleared. Oh, we need to go to Jack D. No, he's cleared now too. Let's go over to Jake. Oh no, it's got to be the bread man across the street from the corner club that has a non-existent son rolling bread, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And some of us believe that. I mean, in a few of the things I believe too. I said, what the heck, is it possible? Yeah. But then I was starting to get in, but is it probable? And I didn't have the answer. I'm like, I got it, my heart, I had it in my heart, I couldn't, just go. This one was one that had younger kids in it, university students, and a piece of me felt like these were my little sister's age. There was a little piece of me that I just couldn't hurt those kids unnecessarily. And I just had to know. I just had to know. And sitting here in Florida wasn't giving me the answers that I was trying to seek. But I can tell you soon, and I have to think that this is that law enforcement, very soon after seeing, they saw, obviously the how horrible it was. We were on the outside of that house and just getting, but it was just something about standing there for the first time. You just knew that it wasn't their friends. I don't know how you knew. You just knew it was something much more sinister. It's just hard to explain. And I don't know if it has to do with experience, listening to intuition. I don't know what it has to do with. But it was just one of those things that at that moment, that very first moment, I remember my toes hurt, my fingers hurt. They felt like they were going to come off. It was the very first day we were there. It was like 23 degrees. The wind was blowing. I remember being absolutely, utterly in pain. It was pain and misery that first day. But I remember the minute I got there, there was no more Jack, Jake, Emily down the street, sorority sister, fraternity, brother. No more of that. At that moment, we still drove around just to be sure, but it was just at that moment standing there. We knew it was somebody else, somebody that wasn't in the picture. We didn't know why. We didn't know how. We just knew it was somebody in the picture. I think it was the moment of nobody that I think it was that feeling of nobody that could have known these people could have possibly have done this to them. I think that really is maybe subconsciously what took me off the fence. It was just, I just knew that there was just something in me that just knew there was something so much more to this. And it is what it is, but I'm glad they're keeping the house up. Did you guys see that? I think they knew. I think people were already starting to write. I think they knew that this was going to be a massive writing campaign. And they knew we weren't going to be doing it by email. We were going to be doing it by snail mail. And, did we help? I have to believe that everybody, and it wasn't just our channel either. So I don't want to say that, we did it all. It wasn't our channel, but there was a lot of people that I didn't realize that were asking for people to write letters and things like that. So I do think it does help just a little bit. But anyways, getting to this, I thought this was really interesting. The motion to reconsider order staying time for speedy trial. So I know we haven't really gone over this. Let me just make sure I'm caught up on some. Hey, Ricky Beavers, I see you. In my opinion, there's no alibi. Absence does not justify proof. That's what the defense is suggesting. I think that's it in the nutshell. Betty, you remind me. I hear that a lot. I actually, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but we were, pretty tight there back when we were covering Crystal Turner and Kylan Schulte's case, and it was Justin Behag. So if you guys know, he's the nephew. He was on a few seasons, and he got into a car wreck and had some massive injuries done to him and had to learn to rewalk and whatever. Well, him and I are friends and stuff like that. And one day, I can't remember. I think I called him. It was like one of these days that I was unexpected, and he was wearing Beth's shirt, and he's like, "Man, I got my auntie on my shirt and seeing her in real life." He goes, "I don't know what to do," or something. Like, it was a little crazy, but he was funny. He cracks me up. He's on TikTok, and again, I haven't talked to him in a while. This was I don't know, about a year ago maybe. But still always keep those. Still nice guy, still great guy. But I've heard that before. But I like her big hair. That's what I need. And I'm going to have to figure out how to, it's either that or she wears a wig. And maybe that's what Bullhorn Betty needs to do, right? Order some wigs, some big hair wigs. Well, be a big hair, right? I'll be big hair. I don't think I got quite I should stop. Oh, good Lord. I need to stop. Police have cell records. His car was around at the time of the murders. Yeah, and that is his records. Okay, so now that we're done reading through those, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna put putzing around here. Let me get to the right. Is this the one? Oh no, we've already read that one. This is the one here. Right here, this is interesting. So they're actually now pushing back. You know how I told you that the speedy clock trial stopped ticking. So now they can actually push that October 2nd date back. We even discussed on this channel how the prosecution is going to, even though they really don't want to, but it's in their best interest to be moving this case forward as quickly as possible, not really giving the defense a whole lot of time. I mean, that is a legal strategy. So they're trying to push this forward, even though they're not going to even be ready on October 2nd. They will if they have to be, but they don't want to do it. They just want to make sure that they're firm on, not giving them too much time to keep wiggling this date back, because again, this is expected. This is kind of standard operating procedure when it comes to these types of court cases. The defense is going to delay. That's what they're going to do. So I thought this was interesting, and I really want to read it to you because this is their motion to stay the trial, or not to reconsider the stay of the speedy trial rights, because, and it says here, the state respectfully requests that this court rescind its order staying time for speedy trial. The state further requests that the jury trial in this matter remain set for October 2nd, 2023, or in the alternative, that it be moved beyond the speedy trial period only if the defendant unambiguously waives his right to speak to a speedy trial. The state makes these requests to give the parties, the victims' families, and the witnesses predictability as to future trial dates, to protect the record, and to avoid needless speedy trial litigation down the road. And then it starts going into the background. The defendant was indicted on these 4 first-degree murder charges, on the burglary charges on May 16, 2023. Remember, he was charged with the crime on 12:30. He was arrested in the early morning hours of 12:30. They did a grand jury indictment on May 16th. And on May 19th, the defendant filed motion requesting grand jury material, including the record and transcript. In the days that followed, the state and defense conferred, but were unable to reach an agreement as to the scope of the grand jury material subject to release under Idaho criminal rule. On June 13th, the defendant filed a motion to stay proceedings, arguing the intent to contest the indictment, and asked the court to stay this case so that he could discover the grounds upon which to do so. Remember, they already had these legal arguments before the court when they were arguing this, the motion to stay to begin with. And also, they've already argued these same exact points in their objection to the grand jury materials. But the court ruled on that matter and gave the transcript to the defense, including for it to be delivered by July 21st, just 3 days before their alibi was due. So, they are arguing. If your guys are saying this sounds a lot the same, it's because they are arguing this. Hold on, guys, just a second. Okay, sorry about that. So you're going to hear some of the same stuff, but still, that's why this is a new document. It's just that, well, it's not new. It's from July 17th, but it's recent. It's not one from previous. And it says, which allows a party to request to stay in proceeding where there has been substantial failure to comply with the applicable laws in selecting a grand jury. On July 10th, the court issued an order to stay the proceedings and issued a limited stay to toll speedy trial period of 37 days. So they're arguing that, and they're saying, as the court noted in its order for a limited stay of proceedings, Kohberger and his counsel agreed to the terms of the stay on July 6, 2023, acknowledging that he could not later argue his right to a speedy trial was violated so long as he brought the trial within the 6-month speedy trial period, plus the additional time of 37 days. Trial remains set to begin October 2nd, 2023. So they're saying that according to this Idaho rule, which allows courts to dismiss a case for lack of speedy trial, is triggered if defendant whose trial has not been postponed upon his application is not brought to trial within 6 months from the filing indictment or information. Idaho Code 193501. Notably, 193501 does not require an unequivocally on the record waiver of speedy trial. Instead, the statute, by its own language, excludes from relief those individuals whose trials have been postponed upon their own application. So you can kind of see where this is going. They're asking, the state is saying that the defense has asked for this stay and therefore has partially waived that speedy trial right, because it needs to be set for October 2nd for it to be a speedy trial. And with the stay of the speedy trial on the defendant's own request, they shouldn't be hindered and it should stay at October 2nd. So I see their argument. I don't know it is a good argument, but I don't know if that will justify them keeping that trial date at October 2nd, unfortunately. Just in my humble opinion. What's this? I don't know what this is. Just in my humble opinion. But object to further continuance, had fully waived. Let's see. There, the Idaho Supreme Court held that an individual who requested a single trial continuance beyond the speedy trial period in order to substitute counsel but objected to further continuance had fully waived his right to speedy trial. Lindquist's arraignment took place on January 4th, 1996, and his jury was set forth July 9th, 1996. Lindquist filed a motion to separate his trial from the two co-defendants. The motion was granted on May 31st, 1996, but Lindquist had not waived his right to speedy trial while the co-defendants had. On June 14th, 1996, Lindquist moved to substitute his new counsel for his own one of two defense attorneys representing him. The court determined that Lindquist would be allowed to substitute counsel if he agreed to a continuance of his trial and waived his speedy trial right. Lindquist and his counsel had concerns that Lindquist would be tried with his co-defendants in the future if he were to waive his speedy trial. However, the court noted that the co-defendants were not prepared to proceed to trial and had requested a trial continuance January 1997, whereas the court could set Lindquist's trial earlier in August or September of 1996. Lindquist then agreed to the continuance and waived his right to speedy trial. His trial date was continued to September 5th, 1996. On August 5th, 1996, the state moved to continue the trial in order to prepare a response to a report of the defense psychologist. Lindquist objected to the continuance, arguing that he had time to prepare. Lindquist offered not to call the psychologist if it meant they would be a continuance. Nonetheless, the court granted the state's request to continue and set trial for January 8th, 1997. On August 8th, 1996, the state made a motion to consolidate Lindquist's trial with that of his co-defendants, and the motion was granted. Ultimately, Lindquist's trial did not start until January 29th, 1997, a year and 25 days after he was arraigned. On appeal, Lindquist did not contest the continuance from July trial on the September trial date. Instead, he argued that subsequently granted continuance from the September trial date to the January trial date was in violation of his rights to speedy trial, because his waiver was limited to the initial continuance. And then the Idaho Supreme Court rejected that notion. So they're arguing here that Bryan Kohberger has waived his speedy trial rights, or at least in part. And what else was in here that was pretty interesting? There's something else that I don't think I covered yet, and I can't find it. As purely practical matter, the party witnesses and victims' family members are now in limbo. I just find that odd because, they haven't been really working with the victims' families. And it's like, they're in limbo. It's like they use them whenever they need to in these court documents. But as purely practical matter, the parties, witnesses, and victims' family members are now in limbo. Will the trial be set out 30 days at the defendant's option or not? If the defendant reviews the grand jury material and elects to challenge them, will the court then issue another few-week postponement? I mean, these are valid questions. Could more few-week postponements be forthcoming as other pretrial matters get litigated, such as in 12B motions, 404B notices, motions in limine, or death penalty challenges? The state is respectful of the defendant's responsibility and needs to prepare for trial, and specifically the need to review all the materials at issue. But it is the state who carries the burden of proof in this case, an awesome endeavor requiring subpoenaing, preparation, and coordination of numerous witnesses, many of whom require travel arrangements and other logistical considerations. Those are all true. We watched how that all worked in the Alec Murdaugh case. I have to say that Alec Murdaugh case, I can't believe how well that trial went with all the people coming from different states. And I know, like Letitia Stout, kind of the same thing. They had some postponements because witnesses weren't quite there yet, due to travel. But another one that actually went really well, trying to coordinate people from 3 different states. I don't know if people understand how difficult that is, and to have minimal disruptions. That is good coordination. That's good logistical consideration. These witnesses includes loved ones, friends of the victims, who are undoubtedly anxious for some degree of predictability as to this case proceeds. The state has considered that should the court continue to order such short-term stays, that these witnesses, not to mention the parties, will be left in limbo during a series of tolling periods where short-term circumstances could be invoked at the defendant's option. Conversely, the courts were reconsidered to order and determine that it was appropriate to reconsider the order. Nothing would change. And then they say, conclusion, as a court noted in its recent order, this is complicated and an unusual case posing unique challenges to the parties. The state is appreciative of the balancing that the court must do in this case and of the court's sensitivity to the need of the parties. But while the defendant undeniably has the right to review the grand jury material, the law simply doesn't allow for a defendant to agree to a toll speedy trial beyond 6 months and then later invoke his right to a speedy trial. As such, in the interest of protecting the record in this case and in the interest of promoting efficiency and predictability in the weeks and/or months ahead, the state respectfully requests that this court reconsider its order staying time for speedy trial. So that is it. I thought that was a pretty interesting document. It really kind of, again, it's showing you, it's kind of showing you their hand. They're going to be attacking, remember the defense is attacking the DNA and trying to find every possibility of getting that DNA thrown out. Their only ability to be able to try to attack it is on the investigative genetic genealogy front, which they're doing. And so, the plaintiff is over here, which is the state. The state is wanting to dig into their preparation for that trial. So he's saying, wait a minute, we're either going to waive this speedy trial or we're going to keep it to October 2nd. Now, I don't know, I've seen enough of these cases where when a judge orders a stay on the speedy trial clock, there's a stay on the speedy trial clock. He's not really going to reconsider, especially since they're kind of arguing the same arguments that they had when they had already addressed this before the court. So I think their objection is well noted, but I don't see the judge waiving Bryan Kohberger's speedy trial right because he chose to stay the case and stop the clock, that specific clock, for the defense. Like, he didn't stop any other clock. He stopped only that one. So there's a reason for that, and I doubt he's going to reconsider that. So this case could technically be moved out 37 days and still be within that speedy trial right as it sits right now. We'll see what the judge decides later down the road. But that's really all I have, guys, related to the Bryan Kohberger case. I know if they drop something later this afternoon, we will come live about it. If I find something else, I hear that there is a press conference today at Gilgo Beach. That's Rex Heuermann. I believe it's 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time potentially, but I haven't seen which. I'm sure any local news outlet is going to be running with it. So we'll see how it is, and we'll go ahead and run that press conference here today at 5, most likely starting at 4. So if you guys would like to go and grab some lunch, take a break, get yourself something to drink, we will be back here in a couple hours and start rolling out with that so we can all watch that press conference coming from Suffolk County, New York. Is there anything else I'm missing? Anybody has any new information? Now would be a great time to ask your questions if you have them. If I don't know it, maybe I'll look it up and see what we can come up with. I think the presser was already done in front of the house. Was it? I thought it wasn't until 5 o'clock. Can somebody tell me if the presser was already done? Because if it was already done, I'll go pull it. Presser was out 12? Shit. Oops, sorry. All right, let's see what they had to say. Did anybody see it already done? I thought it was at 5. I'm sorry. I don't know what the heck I'm thinking. Okay, so Gilgo Beach press conference. Was anybody running it live on here? 36 minutes ago. Okay, here it is. I got it. All right. We'll do this one. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Sorry, guys. I messed up. Sorry about that. But we'll get it here.
Suffolk County Sheriff's Office and FBI, all of whom participated in one way or the other with regard to the search. I really, other than that, I don't have anything else to say. But I'm more than willing to take questions. Anybody have questions?
Is there any indication that any woman was killed here in the house?
So there's no. I don't believe at this time that we can say one way or the other. Either evidence does not point either one way or the other. I would say that we have obtained a massive amount of material, all of which has to be cataloged and analyzed, and it's going to take quite some time.
So just a quick follow-up. If a victim's DNA turned up on material in the house, would that indicate perhaps that she was killed here?
So I'm not going to talk about what ifs, but with regard to what, if anything, was recovered, it's not like TV. It's going to be a while for the analysts to do their job. Now it goes from here to trace section, and then to the if appropriate, the DNA section. So that's a process.
Yesterday, the police commissioner said that the search was fruitful. Can you elaborate on any of the potential evidence taken from here?
I think what he's referring to is the amount of evidence, which is quite a lot, and now it's up to the job of the task force to go through that evidence. And we that's a process, and we need to do that process, but we won't know exactly what we have for quite some time, because just given the sheer volume of evidence that was taken.
One of the other news outlets caught drone footage of what looked like burnt bones in the backyard. Could you share anything?
I can tell you that there was ground piercing technology used in the backyard, and there specifically there was nothing of note.
So they don't think he put anybody in his
as far
yard.
as remains. There is a whole entire trace analysis that we have to go through with the house with regard to hair fibers, DNA, blood, which we'll just have to await the results on.
What can you tell us about inside the vault downstairs? We've seen reports of a mattress possibly being
The house in general was cluttered, and there were a lot of guns taken from the house. The defendant had 92 handgun permits. In addition to handguns, he had quite a few long guns as well.
Are there any other properties?
There's a number of locations which we've searched.
Interesting.
We'll
Multiple
keep that
locations.
to ourselves for now.
Multiple locations they've been searching there.
The suspect's DNA likely was entered into a national database, state database. Is there any hit with any other unsolved cases?
Good question.
So, with regard to state and national DNA databases, there are specific rules with that under New York and federal law. Usually that only happens when you have a convicted person is convicted of a crime. As far as specifically the database, his DNA has not been entered in that database.
What among the evidence really jumps out? I mean,
He's not into CODIS yet? What?
We're going to wait. I mean, I think everyone wanted that singular piece of evidence, but we're going to wait until we see all the evidence. But I don't think there's one thing that really jumps out at us at this juncture.
I don't think he wanted to answer that. I don't believe that.
I'm sorry.
Is there any indication from the evidence of other victims?
Our investigation, focused on the Gilgo 4. We're going to continue to
Gilgo
investigate
4,
that
they
case,
named it. Gilgo 4.
and prepare that case for trial. And we have our investigation now has become public, obviously, and also it's broadened. So we're going to look at the other instances where bodies were recovered in that area as well.
Forensic testing continuing on Maureen Bernard Barnes, and who is conducting it, and what do you know?
Investigation is continuing with regard to Maureen Brainerd Barnes, as well as other aspects of the case, and that's being done in the grand jury or through the grand jury process. So I can't talk about that more than that. It's being there is testing going on with regard to the hairs that were mentioned.
I want to know what states
in the
he's
bail
traveled to that they're aware of.
He's not convicted yet. He's not convicted yet. So to clarify, are you not allowed to put his DNA into databases until after a conviction?
Under New York state law, that's correct.
Are you any closer to filing charges in that fourth case?
We're working towards that, and
Wow.
once we're
New York State, you guys got
once
some
our
work to do.
that investigation is continuing.
Can you tell us what else is found inside the vault besides guns? Anything to believe of criminal activity inside?
The house could be categorized as cluttered. So there is a great deal of stuff that was recovered. So we're just going to have to go through it. But it's the list of items is quite large.
Inside the vault or inside the house in general? In other words, was there anything besides the firearms found inside?
I'm not going to specifically talk about where everything was recovered in the house until the all of the pictures and the reports have been gone over.
DA, I need to.
Storage area, or could people actually enter it?
It was a large enough area for people to enter, but like the rest of the house, it was cluttered.
I need to clarify something.
Like a hoarder situation? Was it, how cluttered was
It was a cluttered. There was a lot of of just boxes and it was a very cluttered, I would say, environment.
DA, I need to clarify something, please. Because he's not convicted, can you not check his DNA against the 6 other people found along Ocean Parkway?
I didn't say that.
That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Yeah. You asked me about the database. The
Okay.
database is national, and that has I am not the members of our task force are not the guardians of that database. But with what we can do with regard to our own investigation is completely different. So one doesn't necessarily have to do with the other. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I came in a little late. Were any human remains found?
No. Well, what I would say is we're still going over the trace evidence, but they were asking about with regard to the excavation in the back if there were any large items of evidence recovered, and the answer to that question is no.
Was
What
there
might
any
have
evidence in the
been
backyard of
crime
things being
scene or an
burned?
alleged crime scene?
I'm sorry.
Do you consider this home a crime scene or an alleged crime scene at this point?
I consider this a home in which we execute a search warrant.
Was there
What
any
might have
evidence
been
in the backyard of
decisions
things being burned?
I can't specifically say one way or the other.
Can you tell us what led up to the decision then to excavate? Was there any tangible cause, or was it routine?
So there was ground technology that was able to see through the ground, and there were a number of disturbances that were found in the ground. But until you dig it up, you don't know what it is.
What do you mean by this? How would you explain?
Like a disturbance could be like a cistern or a branch or
Solid object?
a bicycle, anything that's buried under the ground. You could see the impression of it, but you don't necessarily know what it is until you dig it up.
And then where does the investigation stand with the number of sex workers who now say they were contacted by him?
So when we started our investigation, we did it through the grand jury. That investigation was we wanted to maintain the secrecy of the grand jury investigation. Obviously, that now that there's been an arrest, it's become public. So we are interviewing a great many people.
Is there a number
Wow.
here at this point who have said that you contacted?
We're interviewing a great many people, but we're going to keep what our conversations, what if any conversations we have with our witnesses between us and the witnesses.
There's
How
been
do
a-
you
And
feel
these,
like what you're
these
doing?
witnesses are coming from different states.
I'm sorry.
Are these witnesses coming from different states?
I don't think that this investigation is limited to New York State. Certainly.
Regarding the Chevy Avalanche, you have often spoken about March 14th, 2022 as being the watershed moment. You were able to identify him as a suspect. There's been a lot of talk in the last 12 days about clues missed early on, like this car wasn't looked at. I mean, can you explain why that may have happened?
So I think we laid it out pretty extensively in our bail letter. For us, for our task force, our task force started February 1st, 2022. 6 weeks later, we had identified this individual as a target, and we talked about a number of factors which allowed us to do that. The hairs that we spoke about, the 5 hairs of note with regard to the bodies, those were recovered shortly after the bodies were recovered in December of 2010. With regard to the phone evidence, that work was done and completed by the FBI in early 2012, and and with regard to the avalanche, that information was made available shortly after the disappearance of Amber Costello. But again, when you look at everything, that is three items that are in and amongst thousands of items. So I think retrospectively, it's kind of simple to look at, but when you're looking at everything, all the evidence at once, it's an enormous undertaking, and that's why to guarantee success, you bring in really talented investigators from a whole bunch of different agencies. You use the resources of those agencies, and you work together on a daily basis.
But people in this neighborhood who say it was more than a year, so March of 2022, you made a point of saying that in court. But the people we interview in the neighborhood who say, well, okay, it was a year, more than a year, and then he's living through all that time. What do you say to the residents?
Well, I'm saying to the residents that a 13-year-old cold case doesn't get solved in a matter of weeks or days. The DNA evidence in and of itself was a very lengthy, arduous process, which required the cooperation of a number of agencies, and unfortunately, these things take time. Also, the grand jury process in New York State, in order to charge somebody, you need to charge them, and you need to, in a case of this nature, with the different moving parts, you need to go into the grand jury, and unfortunately, that doesn't happen overnight.
Was there a mattress today?
I'm sorry?
Was there a mattress found in the home?
There were a number of items of evidence, but I'm not going to specifically say where any one item of evidence was found in the house.
Were guns returned to the home today?
No guns were returned to the home. To my knowledge, we all of the guns that were recovered, and we're talking about 283, about approximately 279 weapons were recovered. They're being categorized. Some may not be complete weapons. Some may not be able to be defined as a weapon under New York State law. But suffice to say, there was quite a few weapons found in the house.
What's preventing you right now from bringing charges in the Fort Gilgo case?
The investigation hasn't been concluded.
Have you spoken to the family? Are you aware if they're going to come home once this investigation is done?
So we informed the family. Obviously, they're represented by counsel. So we've spoken to counsel.
And they intend to return to the home?
That would
Would they be allowed to?
That would be a question for their counsel.
So will they be allowed to?
Once we've withdrawn.
A lot of people have asked about the family. Could they have known anything? Do you have any indication at this point that they had any awareness of this?
There's no indication, specifically that they had knowledge. And as we said in our bail letter, during the commission of the 3 latter murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, they specifically were out of the state and traveling during the time of those 3 victims' disappearance.
What struck you as circumstantially interesting or bizarre about the stuff that you dug up, or the house itself? I mean, what stood out to you about this that might, in a sense, reveal something in the character of the alleged?
I don't. We as prosecutors and investigators, we don't really deal in like feelings or we deal in facts. So what we've done is we've acquired a lot of information. So what we're going to do now is what we've been doing all along is we're going to work with our partners. We're going to go through that material and we're going to see what, if any, way it fits into the case.
About how many pieces of evidence were?
Oh God, it's a tremendous amount of information that was I'll say this, a tremendous amount of information that was derived in conjunction with the searches incident to arrest.
More than 1,000 burned down in the storage units?
I'm sorry?
Was there anything burned down in the storage units?
Again, we're going, once we complete the process, we're going to we're going to have further word with regard to that. But what you have to understand is we were looking for tangible items of evidence as well as trace evidence, including blood and DNA and hair fibers and the like. And when you talk about something like that, that is a process that it takes a while for that process to be analyzed by the experts. So that's going to take a while.
Have you ruled out the possibility that the murders occurred here? Have you ruled out that?
We haven't ruled in or ruled out anything with regard to that.
Did you
So
find
there may be more.
That means that maybe there was human remains or something in the house, since everything is so up in the air. Maybe there was some blood droppings.
Well, as I said, that we look for trace evidence, and that we have that is a process that is a scientific process that is done in a lab, and we just haven't had the time to go through that process. So it's incomplete. So you can't say anything more than it's incomplete.
Did you find anything that would be characterized?
Were all of them related to firearms, or was there another type of weapon?
We're talking. I'm specifically talking about what would commonly be referred to as a firearm.
No other strange weapons.
No, and the only reason why I sort of hedge with that is because under New York state law, like a black powder, what the public would say that's a gun. Well, under New York state law, that might not necessarily qualify as a weapon, or under federal law certainly. I have nothing to provide with regard to the brother's house in South Carolina. I have no information. I have no comment with regard to what's going on in South Carolina. It's not my jurisdiction. We are for all intents and purposes done with the search.
When is all this
You're done with the search
Okay.
for all intents and purposes.
That's we're going to rely on the Suffolk County crime lab they're going to do it, withdraw at a time that they deem appropriate. But as far as the search of the house, for all intents and purposes, that has been concluded.
And were the floorboards removed at any point?
I'm not going to get into the specifics with regard to the search, but we were looking for trace evidence.
Is that for August 1st?
I'm sorry?
Is that when we can expect from in court next, August 1st?
Correct.
And what can we expect at that court date? We're going to learn more about the evidence or anything else?
We're going to be, that's just the first conference after the arraignment. So just a typical court conference. We're going to talk about discovery, providing the voluminous discovery in this case. That process is going to start. As a matter of right, defendant has a right to a bail hearing. So we'll see what happens with regard to that.
Has any of the evidence you discovered at the house led you to a theory on the manner of death?
Other than what we've said at the time of arraignment, no. And the cause of death with regard to the three victims has been categorized as homicidal violence.
Did you find any trophies? You had spoken about potentially looking for trophies.
We're not going to specifically talk about specific items of evidence until everything's been cataloged and gone over. As we said, there is quite a lot of stuff.
Would anything discovered at the property lead your agents to feel emotionally moved or psychologically, shifted?
I think that we have a job to do, and we're also human beings. But I think that I would commend all of the examiners for their professionalism.
Is that what you said? The public, we may never know if he's guilty, how he killed them, because it's been so long that went by?
I think we have to let the process work out.
I'm sorry, could you tell me, is there going to be a search by Gilgo Beach or here at Ocean Parkway? Anything happening over there?
So we don't announce our searches before we do them. So we just can't make a comment as to specific areas, if any, to be searched. All right.
Where was this vault in the home, and was it sort of thing that you could walk into?
It was big enough to walk into, and it was in the basement. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Big enough to walk into, and it was in the basement. So I think it doubled as a. I think it doubled. Hold on, to kill this. I think that doubled as a gun shelf safe and a padded room. I for whatever reason, it seems like that was the room they were referring to, and he made it a point to say that it was big enough to walk into. So it wasn't just, this was a huge room. Think about it. It had almost 300 guns in it. It was a huge padded room. God knows what they saw in that room other than the guns. Who knows? A lot of people can speculate. There may not even be anything in that room other than the gun, the arsenal. We just don't know. But they're done with their search. They're not really. Here's some key things that I heard that give me hope and spark my curiosity, perk my curiosity. And that is the house is cluttered. As much evidence as they're going to have to go through, honestly, that is the best that they can expect. Having a cluttered house means what? Most likely it's not being properly cleaned. So there could still be, if it's a house that's cluttered, almost, and you got to think cluttered to people means that it's probably, not quite hoarder, but not, but well beyond college dorm. Okay, college student. Parents, you know what I'm talking about. So it's somewhere between experimental project, petri dish project in the refrigerator to, hoarders, a series of hoarders. So it's a cluttered home. So that means it's probably, like for me, I would think that, this office is cluttered. It's got paperwork. It's got, I got a lot of stuff going on here. To me, this is cluttered to me. But when law enforcement says clutter, it's not this kind of clutter. It's, magazines, books, stuff just kind of piled up and stacked up, cluttered, visibly cluttered. Probably something like what you would see if you visited your grandparents, your elderly grandparents. Why do I say that? It's not to pick on, elderly people. It's because as they slow down in life, they don't have the ability to keep up with certain aspects. And, they also over time have a need to keep things because they know how precious things are as they're getting, as things are progressing for them, as they're aging, right? So I do think and we did hear that he bought the house from his mother. This is his childhood home, which is a little weird, but in all fairness, but I've had some stuff too. There was a time when I wanted to buy my childhood home, but my childhood home had horrible memories in it, and I still wanted to buy it. Just because it was my child home. It was who I was, where I came from. So, but from what I understand, he purchased it for $170,000 from his mother, like in 1990, I want to say 1996. I might be wrong with that. But he bought it. So I have to think that a lot of that clutter very well could be clutter from his mom, and kind of why I refer to a grandparent, because as they age, they're not, they want to still be independent, but they can't, they don't have the same, maybe they were very clean when we were growing up, white glove clean. I've seen homes like that, and then as they're aging, as they are taking care of one another, things have to tend to give to the wayside. They are not taking they're not throwing the magazines out like they once did. They're not, things are starting to stack up. So it might be something like that. That's kind of what I feel they're saying in that statement. But that is good. That means if it's not clean, there's more potential for evidence to be there even years later. For example, if they never vacuum and he had a lady that has, shoulder length hair, most likely her hair is somewhere around that house. I don't know one day that goes by that I don't have a piece of hair on my clothes, right? Like when and when I had longer hair, it was worse. It was so much worse. Like I'd have I'd be pulling like 5 hairs off me, right? So I think, and not only that, but like if they didn't vacuum very often, that means they're probably not taking their vacuum bag very often, and could very well be some valuable evidence in that vacuum bag. But I don't think he ever quit. I just don't. I think he got smarter. I think for whatever reason, when they showed up on Gilgo Beach, when that incident happened that had nothing to do with him, had nothing to do, she kicked it off, running down the street, screaming, "They're going to kill me." Come to find out, she ended up going out kind of into the swamp and got lost and drowned. But she was scared for her life. And I believe things happen for a reason. I wish she would have lived. I wish she would have just gotten in the car with whoever obviously he was her driver. She's worked with him in the past. I wish she would have trusted him a little bit more, unless it's like an ST type of situation, which we know some of these things are. The driver's really the pimp, right? So it could have been a situation like that, and she just did not trust him, and she wanted out. Who knows? We don't know what the situation was, but she did help find all of those girls. And there's just a piece of me that believes that them finding them, and it being so close to his home, like he felt comfortable there because it was his childhood home. He knew that place existed, and nobody went into those that high grass area where he ended up putting them. And he knew that because he's lived there his entire life. This was a place he felt very, very comfortable. It's a place that he felt he was able to move about very, very comfortably because everybody knew him from that neighborhood. This is where he grew up. This is where he stayed. Now he's got his mom's house. This is everything that, everybody in that neighborhood probably hates that house. It is a sore eye type of house, but they know that he's been there forever and since he was a child. And it sounds like there were some people in that community that have lived there their entire life, just like he has. So he was able to hide in plain sight because most of those people grew up with him. And he was bullied from what I hear. He was a very tall guy, very shy and quiet. I hear that his mother's very domineering. And he had kind of this incestuous relationship with her, but not incest, not like that, nothing like that. It was just this weird, I don't know, where he stayed under her thumb forever. So that's what I've learned about him. And we always identify, because I always say that these serial killers, a lot of them have some type of issue with their mom. It just is what it is, whether the mom was just not nurturing, not loving and caring, or whether the mom was just absent, brought an abusive man into the family that just made that person resent the mother. But that's kind of what you find with these types of killers, is that weird bond with their mother or lack thereof. It's always too much or too little. It's really bizarre in my opinion. But I'm curious about South Carolina, because even though he has just purchased the property in 2021, I still believe he's been going down there for a while, because that's where his brother Craig lives. His brother Craig is a survivalist type of guy. He believes in like bunkers and, the Armageddon. He's a survivalist, so he probably has a bunker somewhere filled with, a litany of food. So they're just weird guys. They're big, weird guys. And we're hearing from a neighbor of Craig's that he was told not to mow on a Sunday. And the guy figured, I'm going to go ahead and try to mow it on a Sunday. And this guy Craig, Rex's brother, cracked him upside the head with a steel pipe. And he said he ran into his house and he was going to get his pistol and he was going to KILL him, right? Unalive him. And his wife talked him out of it, but he was so angry. He was going to, go after Craig. And so I just said, this is weird behavior. So now you've got Rex, which, they have obviously enough evidence to make an arrest on Rex. And then you got this weird behavior from his brother that's just odd. Just odd. So is his brother like him? It's hard not to make that leap. And it's really frustrating and upsetting that South Carolina is not saying a whole lot. Like, we're not getting a whole lot from them. I want to know, is Craig under investigation? Has there been anything that makes, because he's all to himself too. He's just a weird, it's just weird. So I guess we'll just see. we'll just see. But anyways, guys, I'm going to let you go. I just wanted you to hear that Bryan Kohberger, they did respond. I just had the feeling that they were going to respond. And, you know, it makes, I look at behaviors, and then that's, you know, I just couldn't imagine her not. I honestly thought she was going to ask for additional time, but her response didn't provide an alibi, and responded to it, saying that basically, you know, we have a right to remain silent. I mean, this is basically what it boiled down to. They basically said we have a right to remain silent, and you know, we're going to be reviewing the evidence, pretty much, and they intend to challenge the indictment, something like that. I don't remember what's in hers. I read 2 of them. So, anyways, that's where we're at. So God bless you guys. Take care, and we will see you. Well, since I don't have a press conference at 5 o'clock because it just happened, I guess I won't see you guys until tomorrow morning. So God bless and have a great day. I may go back live depending on if something breaks during the day, you know, through the rest of the day or not. I'm still sitting here working and doing what's necessary. So God bless you guys. Have a great day.